p.m. And now we are getting started. So we'll start by taking the national anthem, and then just one or two housekeeping rules, and then we will jump right in. Thank you so much. Let me join my American friends. They say, God bless America. I say, God bless Canada. All right, so we will get started right away. Um, so welcome to POI, that's Power of Inclusion 2024 edition. Our theme for this year is The Look Within. I'm really excited about this year because we have such an amazing and powerful lineup of speakers. So I really am looking forward to learning from them. I'm not just the MC, I also have my notepad and my pen. So I'm going to be taking a lot of notes, learning from all these amazing people here tonight. And before we get started, just to let you know, if you look by your screen towards the right-hand side of your screen, you will see show captions. And it's so amazing because you can click on the arrow beside show captions and select a language that you want your text to be displayed in. So if you are French speaking, for instance, you can click on French, whatever I say appears on your screen in French. If you want Spanish, it's the same. If you want any other language, just look through and select the language of your choice and enjoy the translation. This is us being inclusive and getting the translations ready, for every one of us to enjoy. So this is for you to know, select your preferred language and enjoy the translation. Awesome. Okay, right about now, I will be calling on Emmanuel Okoroafor to read the land acknowledgements in English. But before then, I would like to say an official welcome to every one of us on the call. Thank you for joining. Please do well to, invite your friends, your families, your neighbors. Like I said, it's cold. Nobody's really going out this evening. Coffee or tea, and, just enjoy the power of inclusion conference for today. Awesome. So I will be projecting and sharing my screen just so we can all get to see. Okay. The Power of Inclusion in Look Within. It's a 5-day event. It's virtual and in person. So enjoy as we go. All right. So this is just, I will run over this very quickly. For the virtual events, this is day one. Today, we'll be talking about the importance of the legal system in inclusion. We have day 2, day 3, and on. And then we have an in-person event and a gala on the last day. We will be updating you as we progress along with the event. But for now, this is what the agenda looks like, just for us to see. Today, we'll be talking about our focus for this evening will be a look within, and the sub-theme will be the importance of legal system in inclusion. Okay, I will go. We just sang the national anthem, so I'll skip that and move quickly to the land acknowledgement in English. And we are honored to have Emmanuel Okoroafor in our midst this evening and he will be doing justice to reading the land acknowledgement for us in English. Emmanuel, over to you.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll be reading the land acknowledgement. In the spirit and intent of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations, we acknowledge the traditional indigenous territories on which we gather at the beginning of all CMP meetings. We wish to pay respects to Turtle Island, Mother Earth, and the rich indigenous history of Ontario. Recognize that our work takes place on traditional indigenous territories across Ontario. We also wish to acknowledge that CMP head office is located in the traditional territories of the Orowandat, Haudenosaunee, and most recently the territories of the Mississauga of the Credit. This territory is part of the District One Spoon Treaty, an agreement between the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. These territories are also covered by the Upper Canada Treaties. We wish to express gratitude to Mother Earth for the resources we're using and honor all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people who have been living on this land since immemorial. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Next, I'll be calling on our friend Adepeju Akerinde. She will be reading the land acknowledgement for us in French. Over to you, Adepeju.
Bonsoir à tous. Merci de nous rejoindre. Je vais lire la reconnaissance des terres en français. Dans l'esprit et l'intention de recommandation de la Commission de vérité et réconciliation, nous reconnaissons les territoires autochtones traditionnels sur lesquels nous nous réunissons au début de toutes les réunions de CNT. Nous souhaitons rendre hommage à Turtle Island, terre-mère, et à la riche histoire autochtone de l'Ontario. Nous reconnaissons que nos travaux se tiennent sur les territoires autochtones traditionnels de l'Ontario. Nous tenons également à souligner que le siège social de CMP est situé sur le territoire autochtone traditionnel des Huron-Wendat, des Haudenosaunee et plus récemment sur le territoire des Mississauga de New Credit. Ce territoire fait partie du traité Dish with One Spoon, un accord entre les Anishinaabe, les Haudenosaunee et les nations alliées, et ce pour partage et entretenir pacifiquement les ressources autour des Grands Lacs. Ce territoire est également couvert par le traité de Haut-Canada. Nous souhaitons exprimer notre gratitude à la terre-mère et pour les ressources que nous utilisons et honorer tous les peuples de première. Please, can you scroll up? Can you scroll up?
It's in full mode, so I can scroll up. Yeah.
Okay. I might have to stop there.
You have it on your side, so you can read the last two
Okay,
lines
let me go
from your
to
end.
let me just pull it up quickly. The last two lines. Okay, it's the last line. De Première Nation. Okay, so let me just read. Nous souhaitons exprimer notre gratitude à la terre-mère et pour les ressources que nous utilisons et honorer les peuples de Première Nation, Métis et Inuit qui vivent sur la terre depuis de notre immémorial. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much, Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Adepeju. I felt like I read that. I only know Merci and Bonjour, but I felt like I just read all of that, you know. So please encourage me, clap for me in the chat, celebrate me. It's not easy speaking French and learning French at this age. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, Adepeju. Yeah. So just quickly, I'll take you through, you know, the last couple of years. Like I said, this is the fourth edition of the Power of Inclusion. I was privileged to be the MC at year 1 and year 2. Year 3, I was absent, and I'm here again now. So for year 1, we talked about, our theme was, what is the fuss about? Our theme, you know, centered around laying the foundation by addressing and breaking down the barriers to inclusion. And we had an amazing lineup of speakers. It was really amazing. At the second year, we talked about the strength in our diversity, and we celebrated the strength in our diversity by emphasizing diversity as a strength rather than a challenge. We also had some very, very good lineup of speakers. We made amazing connections, especially during the in-person gala. We then moved to year 3 last year, where we had the theme Catalyst for Change. And we looked at empowering individuals and organizations to drive systemic change and act as a catalyst for change. And this year, we are talking about the inclusive, we're talking about a look within, and we're looking at all of these sub-themes: the importance of legal system and inclusion, importance of governance, technology, NGO charitable organizations, religion, and the financial industry in inclusion. As we know that these systems are critical systems and they influence how inclusion happens within societies. Okay. We will be celebrating our partners. I will talk about our partners briefly, and then I will play a very short video for our small businesses, because again, we do have a number of small businesses that are supporting us as an organization, CNP. All right, we have RBC, who is a supporter. They've been a supporter for a couple of years. Thank you, RBC. Our sponsor, the program is partly funded by the government of Canada. We thank you. We appreciate Luna. Luna is one of our sponsors. Luna gave us the space for our gala that will be happening on Saturday. Thank you so much. They are our bronze sponsor. And we have other partners. We have Grandmother's Voice, which is an indigenous organization. We have the ACCH, that's the African Caribbean Council of Outing. Thank you so much. We have Hispanotech, an Hispanic organization. Thank you for your support. We have Alliance Creative Community Project, which is a Ghanaian organization. Thank you for your support. We also have Paceboard, a nonprofit focused on improving lives of children with disabilities. These are the things that really makes my heart beat. Thank you so much for your support. We have SEAS Center, that's Support Enhanced Access Service Center, a Chinese organization. Thank you for your support. We have the Care Foundation, an organization caring for caregivers. It's funny that caregivers give a lot of care and attention to people, but how many people really look after them? But we do thank the Care Foundation for looking after our frontline workers, the caregivers. Thank you. And of course, we have the last but not the least, African Canadian Association of Ottawa, ACAO. Thank you for your support. Quickly, I will be playing the video for our small businesses and showing us, how they're supporting us. So give me one quick minute to pull that up. Yep. Thank you everyone for joining, and please, you can invite your friends. Just 1 second. Video is coming up right about now. Okay. One second, I apologize. You can see the video right here. It's just up the screen, so forgive me. All right, there we go.
This
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to all our small businesses. Thank you for your support. This video is on our website. It's also on our LinkedIn page. Please feel free to go there, look at the video again, see all the small businesses, and let's support them. Let's encourage them. These are businesses that we are definitely sure that they will do well and continue to grow and make us proud. Thank you so much. Okay, right about now, I have the privilege to call on Our Royal Highness Adejisola Atiba, who will be giving us a welcome address about CNP and CAP. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a virtual welcome to Our Royal Highness. I like to call her Lady Abba. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome, Dr. Cukier. Welcome, Chief Stephen Tanner. Welcome, Honorable Justice Irving Andre. Barrister Titi Olatunji, thank you so much. Our moderator, truly, truly appreciate you all. And to everybody that's joined, really, really appreciate you. My name again is Adejisola Atiba. People call me Lady Abba. I want to welcome you to Power of Inclusion, a look within, our fourth rodeo, I will call it. My welcome address, I've titled it Confusion to Vision. And it's really about my journey and about a lot of people's journey. Because really, if you ask everybody around you, everybody has a story to tell. But the point is, how are we turning our stories, our pain, how we turn it into something beautiful? And I'm happy to say that my confusion has become my vision and it has become my purpose in life. So I'm going to talk about 3 areas: about CMP, about why we decided to pivot, and what my ask is of everyone joining today or somebody listening even after the fact. So Council of Nigerian Professionals, CNP, began amidst challenges. Our communities faced a lack of support, lack of information, mentorship, with limited resources available to foster growth and collaboration. This reality inspired a vision, a call to create a space that would uplift, empower my immediate community. What started as a small effort quickly gained momentum as others embraced the dream to make a difference. Today, CMP is a dynamic organization that supports youths, professionals, entrepreneurs, and the holistic family through a variety of impactful programs. We provide mentorship. We share timely and relevant information and collaborate with organizations, as you can see, to add value to our lives. Our programs aim to equip individuals with tools to thrive, build connections, and create opportunities for success. Through these efforts, we empower not only individuals, but also the community they serve. You know, we soon realized that, yes, we started as CMP, Council of Nigerian Professionals, but realized that what a Nigerian need really aligns with the needs of Africans and other communities. And with this understanding, we expanded our focus from just Nigerians, but to embrace everyone in the African space. And considering the fact that we live in Canada, everyone in Canada for that matter. And we embraced equity, diversity, and inclusion as essential principles for participating in Canada's economy and society. By fostering these values, we strive to leave a legacy of empowerment. Because again, I've had a lot of people ask me, why do you do what you do? I do what I do for me. To be candid, I'm selfish. I do it for me. But having said that, if you ask me again, I'll say I do it for you. And I do it for our children. And, you know, there's an adage in my place that says, no one tree can make a forest. And so collectively, we do it for us, our children, and generations unborn. And I just want to pause a little to say a big shout out to everyone that's contributed to the dream. Everyone that's contributed to the dream and making it possible, turning the confusion, the pain into vision, into impactful vision, impacting lives of people that we don't even know. we've prided ourselves that since 2018, we've actually been making meaningful relationships happen. And a lot of people will agree to that, whether they're small businesses, whether they're youths, they will tell you that that is what CMP has been doing. Connecting people, mentoring people, sponsoring people, supporting people, impacting lives. That is what we've been doing. And I do want to mention a few names. I do see some of the founding directors online. Dr. Oyabioye, thank you so very much for your support. Ebere Morgan, still standing from day one. Thank you so very much. There's a lot of people I can mention. Dr. Ayoade is going to moderate today. Halima Nganza, Efwange Kumba, I can go on and on, Olubenga. All these names are on our website. Thank you all, because without you, there is no CMP, CAP. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for the passion, the love that you bring to bear. And so for everyone else, my ask of everyone here is to join us in turning confusion into vision. Because together, when we leverage our network, our skills, when we leverage everything that makes us unique, we're able to impact other people's lives. You know, we all know that impact only happens when people put their mind to it. So at CMP, we're very, very intentional at doing the things that we do, and we encourage you to join us to make an impact, to change lives, to make Canada a better place for every one of us. When we focus on equity, diversity, and inclusion, we create a rippling effect that transcends personal or family benefits, impacting lives everywhere. I sincerely appreciate everyone really for joining us tonight. And I look forward to learning from all these amazing speakers. And I hope you're ready to. Let us come together and contribute in making our world a better place. Thank you so much again. And on that note, I'm handing it back to the MC.
Thank you so much, Lady Abba. Thank you. I mean, we hear you loud and clear, turning your confusion to vision. And I particularly liked what you said about leveraging on our uniqueness and then going back to last year, acting as catalyst for change, looking within, like it is our theme this year, and, putting all hands on deck, ensuring that we make, we leave our environments a better place, better than we found it, and ensure that we stand on the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion and carry everybody along, making the world a much more better place for them. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. All right. So right about now, I will be sharing my screen again, and I will be introducing our moderator for today. Okay. So we're about to go into the panel discussion. But before I introduce our moderator, I would like to remind us, especially those of us just joining the call, that if you look to your screen, the second button on the screen, on the Zoom control second button from the right, you have CC, that means caption, meaning that you can change the caption and select a language of your choice. So if the moderator is speaking in English, you will be seeing the translations in your preferred language. So if you have selected French or Spanish or whatever, you'll be you'd hear us in English, but you would be able to read the caption in your preferred language, because we know that this is one of the tenets of the CNP and CAP is that we stand on the tenets of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So this is why we have gone one step further, making sure that this can be translated to suit the needs of our audience. So right about now, I have the utmost pleasure to introduce our moderator for today, Dr. Ayo Adeyemi. I will read his bio, and then he will come on board, introduce the other speakers. I'll just show their pictures like this. All right. Dr. Ayo Ade, by the way, I'm privileged to have known him for several years, all the way back from Nigeria. And he's been a consistent man, doing the same thing he's been doing, impacting lives, and he's a born teacher. I hope we get to see a taste of that this evening. Dr. Ayo Adeyemi, also known as AY Morgan, is a business strategist and management consultant with over 2 decades of experience in human resources, enterprise development, marketing, and project management. He is a recipient of numerous awards. To mention a few, he's the recipient of the Global Mentor Award in 2022 and the Rotary International Distinguished Regional Service Award. Dr. Ayo lectures at a college in Toronto, Ontario. Here in Canada, he belongs to the membership of several professional associations, home and abroad. He is a Rotarian and an environmental sustainability advocate. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone on the call, please make welcome Dr. Ayo Adeyemi, aka AY Morgan. Please give a virtual welcome to Dr. Ayo.
Yeah, that's welcome me. All right, thank you so much, Julius. That is great. It's good, so great to see you again. And thank you for the fantastic job you are doing. All right, thank you so much. Once again, beautiful evening to everyone out there. And it's so great to have you around for another edition of the Power of Inclusion 2024. It has been a wonderful time previous years, and this year it will not be anything short of an excitement, a learning period, and highly impactful period. Tonight we have the cream like cream, the professional and expert in their chosen field that will be discussing with us. But to set us rolling, I'm going to quickly, introduce my panelists tonight. And Taiwo, if you can help me pull down that slide so that we can have the panelists show their face as well. Thank you. All right, so I have them seated, ready, and I can assure you they're going to do justice to our discussion tonight. Our focus, the theme of 2024 Power of Inclusion is a look within. But tonight, day one, we are looking at the importance of the legal system in inclusion. And I'm sure you have seen that our panelists are people of the justice system, they are, officers of the law, and that they will be able to do justice to the discussion tonight. I have our keynote speakers tonight, Dr. Wendy Cukier, who is here. She's here, and she will be leading the discussion. But before she starts, and let me quickly read her bio. And this is an abridged bio, because if I have to read her bio, we'll not leave here today. So I have an abridged version, but you need to know more about her, and I'm going to encourage that you visit her LinkedIn to know more about her. But tonight we have Dr. Wendy Cukier, an inspiring leader in diversity, innovation, and entrepreneurship, a professor of entrepreneurship and innovation at the Ted Rogers School of Management. Dr. Cukier is also the co-author of Innovation Nation, Canadian Leadership from Java to Jurassic Park. She is the founder and academic director of the Diversity Institute at Toronto Metropolitan University, leading a team of over 100 staff and 2,000 plus industry partners focused on workplace inclusion, future skill, and entrepreneurship. Dr. Cukier spearhead transformative projects, including Canada Women Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, an initiative for the Future Skills Center, and the 50-30 Challenge. A dedicated volunteer, she served on numerous boards, including the Federation for African Canadian Economy, called FACE, and the Lifelong Leadership Institute, and has represented Canada globally, including at the United Nations World 20 delegation. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, tonight, jam those hands together virtually and physically, and let's welcome our keynote speaker for tonight, Dr. Wendy Cukier. When she's done, I will introduce all the people who are going to be the discussant of our paper tonight, and we're going to look at other perspectives. Thank you.
Thanks so much, and it's a real pleasure and honor to be included with such a great panel. I'm going to use slides just to provide some highlights on, I'm going to talk about Black economic inclusion in Canada, and the role of legislation and policy in advancing that. And I'm just going to draw on some of the research that the Diversity Institute has done. And the reason for this is what we find is often people who are living through certain experiences think it might be them or something that they've done. And I'm here to tell you about the fact that Canada has many strengths, but we also have some weaknesses. And we have found more and more evidence that anti-Black racism is a problem in many of our institutions. And I know many of you were born in Africa, and my executive director is from Somalia, and he said, until I came to Canada, I was never Black. It was an identity that was imposed upon me. And so many of you may have different identities, but within our context, people from Africa, people from the Caribbean, and so on, tend to identify as Black. I want to talk about what we know about education pathways, employment pathways, entrepreneurship, and leadership, and some of the issues that are important. And I'm just going to brush through some of the stats. If people want the slides, they can have them. But a couple of really important issues. One is that the Black community in Canada is very diverse. And so we have people who are relatively recent immigrants, for example, that have come from the African continent. We have people who have been here typically for longer, who have come from the Caribbean. We have people who have been here for literally centuries, and we call those Indigenous Black people, who are typically found on the East Coast. We also know that 60% of the Black community in Canada are also immigrants, and that adds layers of complexity. We know that there's diversity in religion, and you're going to talk about religion in one of the sessions, that about 12% of the Black community, for example, are Muslim. And that's a shift in recent years. We know that the Black community is younger than the rest of the community. That's really important for every single sector, from policing to medicine to education, because those are the kids who are our future, and we have to really pay attention to the start that we're giving them in life. We know that, and this is, I think, interesting because it's largely a function of immigration. The gap between the Black community and the rest of Canada in terms of education is gone. Black people are as likely to have a university education as everyone else, but that hasn't translated into the economic benefits that we would expect. Black university graduates are almost twice as likely to be stuck in jobs that only require high school education. And there's lots we can talk about there. Legislation, regulations around recognizing internationally trained professionals play a big role. When we think about education in Canada, it's the foundation of social mobility. If you think of the American dream, I don't actually know what that is anymore, but the Canadian dream is really predicated on access to education. And the education and wealth of your parent in Canada is not a predictor of your success. I've met lots of taxi drivers who have kids who are accountants, doctors, lawyers, and so on. Education really is critical. But we know that in Canada, Black youth face all kinds of barriers. And in fact, Black children do as well in the education system. And those are things that we have to grapple with because education is such a foundation. We know that Black youth in schools, for example, are more likely to be disciplined for the same offenses as other students, but in more severe ways. They're more likely to be expelled and so on. And Carl James at York University has done a lot of research looking at how this happens. One really good thing that's happened in the province of Ontario is they've done away with streaming. Streaming is where young people are told, take these courses because you're really not smart enough to go to university. And there's lots of evidence that that was done, particularly to Black youth. In fact, the executive director of the Diversity Institute, Mohammed Elmi, who has a PhD in management science, had a mother who fought for him when the school tried to stream him into the non-academic subjects. So we have to recognize that inclusive education is the foundation of success. We also have to recognize, and I mentioned this at the outset, that despite bridging the gaps in terms of education, we see underemployment in the Black community, and we see that people who are Black earn less in the same roles than others. And the experiences of discrimination at work, we've also studied, and we know that racialized people generally experience discrimination, but Black people experience more. And there have been some pretty horrific cases recently. I mean, the worst for me personally, I think, was the Canadian Human Rights Commission. The Canadian Human Rights Commission was found by the Senate of Canada through a commission that an investigation that they had, to be permeated with anti-Black racism in the Canadian Human Rights Commission. A recent study has come out about the Privy Council of the Government of Canada and the problems of anti-Black racism there. That's the highest body overseeing government in Canada, and there were people who were using the N-word in the highest government body. So when we think about anti-Black racism, it's really important to understand that it's pervasive and it's a reality, and we have to confront it. We also know that there's a link between experiences of discrimination, mental and physical health problems. Those are other things that we have to be prepared to confront. Stereotypes in the media. We did a study recently with the Black community, and we also looked at representation in the media. We know that there's more likely to be associations with criminal activity or with sports or with entertainment than, for example, with success in business. So these things have a huge impact overall on values, assumptions, and stereotypes. And when we look at Black entrepreneurs, we see that there are real issues there as well. We know that many Black entrepreneurs pursue entrepreneurship because they see an opportunity. They want to work for themselves. They may have had experience internationally and they want to build a business here, but they have problems getting access to financing. They have problems getting access to the support that they need. And often they face overt discrimination. And unfortunately, we have too many examples of that. It's interesting as well to note that in the Black community, immigrants are far more likely to be entrepreneurs than non-immigrants. And sometimes that's because they're excluded from the employment that they deserve, but sometimes it's because they see opportunities that other people don't see. It's important to understand that during COVID, Black entrepreneurs suffered more than others and had less access to resources and supports. And this was a study that was done of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business and the Black Business Professional Association. Black entrepreneurs were twice as likely to be hard hit by COVID, risk going out of business. And look at the bottom line. In terms of the capacity to take on extra debt, very few were able. And most of the COVID relief programs were loans. So these sorts of things have to be taken into account when we're looking at confronting anti-Black racism and how it gets baked into our systems, to our programs, to our policies, and frankly, to our legislation. Stereotypes are a huge challenge for women, as well as for racialized and Black people, Indigenous people, and others, because there's such a strong association between white men in tech and entrepreneurship, and that permeates the system. We've looked at Black leadership. When you have underrepresentation at the top of organizations, that contributes to the gaps in wages and generational wealth. And one of the things we've seen is Black North, which was created after the murder of George Floyd, is really focused on trying to advance Black people in leadership roles. And it's had some significant impacts. And we've been tracking that right across the country. It's interesting because the city that has the best representation of Black people in leadership roles is actually Halifax. And that's partly because the Black community is better established and older. And when we look at organizations, we see high levels of working in the Black community, but lower levels of representation at the top. And that's something we also have to work on. So when we think of the way forward, there are no simple solutions to complex problems. We have to grapple with the stereotypes. We have to look at legislation. We have to think about broader infrastructure issues. At the same time, organizations, every organization, universities, the justice system, healthcare, policing, financial institutions have to really look hard at their policies and practices. And we also have to look at individual attitudes and behaviors. And so when we think about legislation, and you're going to talk a lot about legislation, the justice system, and so on, when we think about economic inclusion in legislation, we have to think about immigration policy. We have to think about childcare policy, because that has a profound impact on the ability of Black women to participate in the workforce. We have to think about access to healthcare. We have to think about employment equity and accessibility because of that intersection between experiences of discrimination and the impacts on mental health. And some of the things that we're really preoccupied with are procurement policies. Increasingly, large companies, as well as government organizations, now have set-asides targeting Black entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, Indigenous entrepreneurs, and so on. And then there are, of course, voluntary codes like the Black North Initiative or the 50-30 Challenge. And frankly, there's also using the courts. Many of you know about the Black class action lawsuit, where a group of federal employees are suing the federal government. We have to challenge stereotypes and celebrate success. The Black Business Professional Association has been doing this for almost 40 years with the Harry Jerome Award, but the kinds of events that you're having tonight to showcase success, critically important and have to be shared broadly. We have to develop strategies at the organizational level, and we have to really think about capacity building. Two sides. Capacity building in the Black community to make sure that there's a level playing field and people have access to the opportunities that they deserve. Capacity building in all organizations so people understand their biases, understand how microaggressions and anti-Black racism play out, understand the history of Canada with respect to anti-Black racism, slavery, and segregation. Because Canadians like to think we're so much better than the US. If you actually start to dig into the history, it doesn't look so good. So there's lots that we need to do in order to increase awareness, and the kind of events that you organize are part of that. So in terms of the lessons learned and the things that I hope we'll talk more about are the historic roots of anti-Black racism in Canada, because it's deeply embedded and we have to be able to confront it. Understanding diversity within the community, understanding that many of the people who've recently come from Africa have very high education standards and important experience that is often undervalued. The need for investments and supports at every stage of the educational system, and ensuring that we really try to confront bias in every form. So that's a lot in a very short time. But I just wanted to give you sort of a quick run through some of the really concrete evidence that shows we've got a problem. And then I'm hoping that other panelists will talk more about action planning and what we can do to address it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wendy. That was highly engaging and well-researched. And I'm sure it's going to be very resourceful for our discussion tonight. Our panelists have listened to you, and I know they are already analyzing and looking at how we balance this. Just a little thought around what you have said, which I also know that is going to form part of our discussion tonight. In actual fact, our focus is the importance of the legal system in inclusion. And I know some of the things you have highlighted and how it can also help the Black community. We also the legal system, we have something to do about some of this, especially some of the stereotype aspect that you mentioned, the stalking, the streaming, and all of those things. I think the legal system, we have some form of remedies or intervention to play. All right. So I'm not going to put you on spotlight, but except you still have one. I mean, you have a thought to share around that. But I know we have a very well, robust panel who are going to also be able to add some of this information to us tonight. All right. Thank you once again, Dr. Wendy. And so quickly, let me go to our panelists, and I'm quickly going to also read their abridged bio. Our panelists tonight are men of and women of great honor. And I also want to encourage all our participants to visit their LinkedIn to read so much more about them, so that you can know their depth and so much more about them. But tonight, I'm going to start in no particular order. I'm going to start from Barrister Titi Olatunji. And Titi Olatunji is a seasoned attorney with over 10 years of experience in real estate law, contract disputes, and family law. She is a partner at the Platinum Law Firm and a member of the Law Society of Ontario, Canada. Titi holds advanced law degrees from the University of Lagos and Nigerian Law School. She is also affiliated with the Ontario Bar Association and Canadian Association of Black Lawyers. Beyond law, Titi enjoys reading, singing, and exploring diverse culture through travel. Tonight, jam your hands together as we welcome the Anthony Titi Lokwe. So I'll move to the next person before we open the floor for discussion. And I'm going to quickly introduce Honorable Justice Dr. Irving Andre. Honorable Justice Dr. Irving is a Caribbean-born judge who has made a significant impact in Canada's legal system. Born on the island of Curaçao and raised in Dominica, Dr. Andre pursued higher studies, earning a gold medal in English and a doctorate degree in law. He moved to Canada in 1984, where he graduated from the Osunde Hall Law School of York University, specializing in labor law. Dr. Andre has received numerous awards, including the African Caribbean Achievement Award and the Queen's Golden Jubilee Award. He is also author over a dozen books on history, literature, and economics. As one of the few Black judges in Canada, Dr. Andre is committed to community service, advocating for education and empowerment. Yes, thank you. You're welcome, Dr. Irving. The last but not the least is a chief, and tonight I've said I'm going to add another chief. In where I am from, a chief occupies or control a territory. All right, so you are a chief, so we will add I chief. This is my third time of having engagement with Chief Turner. So tonight I'm going to add I chief to your name. In any case, let me quickly read your bio before we start the engagement. Chief Stephen Turner is the Chief of Police of the Hatton Regional Police Service in Ontario, Canada. Born in Oakville, Ontario, Turner graduated from the University of Guelph with a psychology degree and later earned a Master of Public Administration from the University of Western Ontario. With over 40 years of policing experience, Turner has worked in various roles, including uniform patrol, criminal investigation, tactical rescue. Some of his notable positions include Deputy Chief of Operation with the Guelph Police Service, Chief of Police of Belleville Police Service, and Chief of Police of the Kingston Police Force. General currently serves as the chair of the Criminal Intelligence Service of Ontario. Ontario, and co-chair of the National Police Service, National Advisory Committee. He has received several awards, including Officer of the Order of Merit of the Police Force and Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal. Thank you, Chief Tenor. You are welcome tonight. And I want to welcome all my panelists tonight. They are great and accomplished men in their various fields. Once again, I want to thank our keynote speaker for opening the floor. And tonight, we're going to go straight into discussion. You have all listened to her, and I'm just going to give you 1 minute, to say what we don't know, what is not in your bio about you, and then make your short at what the keynote speaker has shared with us in 1 minute. Then we will go to other discussion. Thank you. So I'm going to start today is Men International Day, and I'm as honorable men, I think we don't mind having the ladies to the lady namis to open the floor. Thank you. Barrister Titi.
All right, thank you so much for having me, and it's a pleasure being on this panel. One thing not in my bio that I'd like to just highlight is the fact that I like to explore different kind of cuisines, and yeah, just try it out and see if it works. If it doesn't work, we'll pass. Thank you.
I hope your album isn't on the way since you sing. All right. So, Honorable Justice, would you like to go second? Your mic is muted. You want to open your mic.
Good evening to your esteemed panelists, to the organization who've organized this gathering. And let me congratulate Dr. Cukier for a wonderful background with respect to the topic that we have to discuss. There's no question that we have to keep in mind those types of disparities in income in particular in discussing meaningfully the whole question of justice and inclusion. Let me just start by saying that if you look at the topic inclusion and the legal system, you may say that this is a case of mistaken identity, because the justice system is not exactly known for the extent to which it has opened or extended an open invitation to racialized persons. On the contrary, the studies suggest otherwise. And lastly, let me say that when you say that we are looking at a look within, in terms of my own perspective, I will say that to me, it's a look from within, but I will have more to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We get to it so quickly. Chief Stephen, now the mic is yours.
Well, thank you. Now, you made me seem a little bit old with 42 years in policing. I'm actually in my 40s. I've come up with a new numbering system. I'm in 4024 this year.
Wow.
So it's my 24th year of being in my 40s. And I still love this profession because I think it is one where we can truly make a difference. And I'll talk a little bit more about Halton, and some of the people on this call and the organizers obviously are a little more immersed in Halton. But I really think that we are doing some things right and differently here, and still need to do them better. So it's really a chance for us to talk about what we're doing here, what we need to do, changes we need in the legal system. I do like to travel a fair bit, so I'm back in the cold country of Canada now. So it's great to join you, and thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Stephen. Okay, I'm going to come back to you, Chief, and we're going to just start the discussion, from your table. As the last speaker already. And my discussion, my question to you, or what I would like you to shed more light on, and probably share your thought, will be pursuing a proficient law that would allow enforcement, perhaps when the federal law does not take care of some aspect. How do you see that, and what are your thoughts along that line? That can enhance
our criminal code is complicated. It does not have enough teeth in it or enough detail in it to really deal with racism and discrimination. It has hate crime, which is a very narrow definition. And once in a while, something happens in our community where we can actually enforce that law. I'll give you one example. We had a horrendous hate crime in the city of Burlington. Posters being put up calling for the death of individuals of the Black race and the Jewish race, both together, put up around downtown Burlington. We put so much work into that case, tremendous investigative work. They were identified, 2 individuals, early 20s, through bicycles and video canvases. And we ended up actually from the posters getting DNA to prove who put those posters up. And we still had to have the approval of the Attorney General to lay the charges. And for a little while, it was back and forth. And I was just so shocked by that. I actually said to the Attorney General and others, I will go to the media if we are not permitted to lay these charges. So I say that because a lot of our citizens and a lot of our victims of racism or of discrimination, whatever the basis of that discrimination is, really are confused when they hear that the police cannot do too much about some of those things. The whole difference between hate crime and hate incidents and what is right and what is wrong. But actually, so much of it is wrong. And it's sort of forced me some time ago to start to think about, well, we have a lot of laws in our province that deal with behavior. We have a liquor license act. I mean, I cannot sit in a park and drink a glass of wine. My behavior when I'm driving a vehicle is controlled by the Highway Traffic Act. We have a Trespass to Property Act. We have things that deal with dogs and animals, and we don't have anything that deals with racism and discrimination. So I'm wondering, in the bigger picture, if we cannot move some of that forward. I've had some very preliminary contact with our Solicitor General and Attorney General in the province right now, Doug Downey and Michael Kersner, to discuss this at a very high level. But wouldn't it be great if we had something with some degree of enforcement for the police, that when there was some of these horrendous situations going on, you know, a young Black family walking through a park and accosted and racial slurs and things that go on, and they actually do go on, or our Jewish community or whoever it is. Sometimes these things are on video and there is still nothing that can technically be done about it. So that's why I've thought that I would like to explore the possibility of I don't want to say a lower level statute because it's provincial and not federal. It is a little bit lower, and the judge and other people will certainly, be in tune with that. But I think there should be something that controls some of the horrendous behavior that our officers sometimes have to witness. And unless it becomes a noise disturbance and other things cause disturbance, there is not an actual act that covers it. I think maybe it's time that Ontario is the first to do that.
Oh, thank you so much for that. I will allow Honorable Justice, if you want to react to that. What is your opinion, and how do you think that can actualize from what Chief Stephen has said?
Well, the bottom line is to what extent, or what is the commitment? What is the societal commitment to instituting measures, legislation, initiatives to address in a very fundamental fashion the debilitating effects of racial exclusion? So the justice system is one component, but in the justice system, you see on a very almost on a daily basis. For example, the cost of litigation. The professor has presented information, statistics, showing that poverty is racialized to a significant degree in Toronto, in Ontario, in Canada, for God's sakes. And that has a significant impact on the question of access to justice. Another component of access to justice, for example, is the whole question of the assistance given to litigants, particularly in family law, where there are chronic difficulties relating to spousal violence, civil law, and so on. The amount of state assistance that indigent persons receive from the state is somewhat dismal, is somewhat pathetic. So when you add to that mix the whole question of language, for many racialized persons, English is a second language. And although interpreters are provided typically in a court proceeding, particularly in non-criminal matters, it is not as forthcoming as in, for example, criminal matters. Not only that, but you have a latent distrust of the court process. Now, many racialized persons who come from other countries perhaps have had negative experiences in their own countries regarding the court system. But in Canada, quite frankly, when you are inundated on a daily basis with stories in the press about how the justice system has failed to basically respond to the needs of racialized individuals, then it stands to reason that you have this latent distrust of the system to a point that persons, or many persons, or racialized individuals, they have no desire to become engaged or involved in the system as a system that would offer them some redress. So this is something that has to be overcome because, quite frankly, in many ways and in many instances, particularly insofar as criminal justice is concerned, the system has failed the racialized community. And that is something that has to be addressed. How can it be addressed? There's no panacea. There's no one correct course of corrective action. It seems to me, however, that we as a community, we have to probably come together and we have to exert a little more political pressure on those who control, who are the decision makers in the community. Because let's face it, it may not be the only language that the political class understands, but it's the most important language that it understands. You know, the fact that if you continue to ignore the community, if you continue to do so with impunity, you do so at your own detriment, politically speaking. That persons can come together, they can pool their resources, they can make the system more responsible to the needs of our community. And that, in my view, is more effective in achieving change than to wait on the charity or the pangs of conscience of those who make those decisions. So much of the work rests with our community, quite frankly. And as I said, it is only when we become a force to contend within the community that we will start to see real, meaningful, and lasting change insofar as how we interact with the criminal justice system or with the justice system.
Thank you so much. Actually, I have a follow-up question to that, which you're going to come on. But before then, I think I want to highlight one important mention from what you have shared with us, and that is putting pressure on the system. But I also think getting more involved in the politics, which also make things happen, will probably be another way that we might need to. So we will get to that. Let me allow Barrister Titi, what's your thought in 30 seconds on this particular side of discussion?
Well, I think another way we could help ourselves in terms of being included is to ensure that there are no enforcement gaps. So in the legal system, you see, we have various laws that are in place already in the system. Not that we have a gap where there's no law. There are laws. You can see the Ontario Human Rights Code. You can see various laws, even in the employment segment. You can see the Employment Act, you know, trying to prohibit discrimination, segregation. So we have all of those fine laws that are the bedrock for any society. But enforcement, there is a gap. We need to try and connect the law. Like, let there be enforcement. Let there be parastatals that ensure, okay, what are the employment procedures we have in this organization? Do we follow through? Are we inclusive? What exactly are we doing to ensure that we include racialized people? What are we doing? And we, on our own part, have to ensure that the laws are being enforced. Because if we don't speak up for ourselves, no one will. So I think it is critical to ensure that we don't just have these legislations sitting down there, have amendments from time to time, but what are we doing in terms of getting these laws enforced and in terms of we actually being included according to the laws? So you have the education system, they have the laws, which says every child is entitled to education. No discrimination, no segregation. I could refer back to Dr. Wendy's presentation where she mentioned where the situation where children are being forced to go into not maybe colleges, encouraged to go into colleges. We have the law that makes education the right of every child, but we don't see enough enforcement. So for me, I would say we need to bridge the gap in enforcement and speak up for ourselves. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think something is coming out of our conversation, and The policeman here said we need more law for certain aspects that seems not to be taken care of by the legal system. The justice has said we need more political will and some more of involvement. And then Barrister Titi is saying, look, enforcement is part of our challenge. Okay, so we get to it. Barrister Titi, I'm going to put this question to you. And it just linked to what we are discussing, and then we take it up from there. For the human rights law, I said, the data we have said Canadian Human Rights Tribunal report that about 70% of complaints are related to discrimination in employment, particularly against racial minorities and individuals with disabilities. Okay, so let's look at it. Ensuring robust legal framework to protect against discrimination in all aspects of life, including employment, housing, and education. What is your take around this? How do you think we can actualize this, Barrister Titi?
So, we have the we have enough anti-discrimination laws here in Ontario that regulate microaggression and what have you. And the experience so far is, yes, we have these laws, but people still experience discrimination either because of race, either because of gender, or because of their color. So even though we have these laws in place, I think we also need to, within ourselves, promote awareness. So I've had some people reach out in the past saying, oh, I need an employment or a labor lawyer that can help me. I have concerns with my employment. I'm being laid off. The proper procedures are not followed, no due notice. And by the time they get a lawyer who is ready to take up their case, just like Chief mentioned, is either they don't have enough funds, just like Honorable Justice mentioned, is either they don't have enough funds to even pay the lawyer to speak up on their behalf, or even when they have enough funds, they're afraid. They're like, oh, I have to speak against my former boss. I'd rather let it fly and get another job. So these are some of the day-to-day limitations that we have and that we experience even on the job. So regardless of the fact that we have, for example, if I'm making a comparison, we have better laws than we do in Africa. But now that we have the laws, if they're not being utilized, so you see a lot of people shying back. They don't want to be labeled as speaking against their bosses, or even when they don't want to shy back, they don't have enough resource, or they'll rather tell you, I'd rather pay my rent than pay a lawyer this much. So those are the kinds of things we experience when it comes to discrimination in employment. In housing, we also have laws that provides for us having access to housing. We have low-income housing. We have all this kind of good stuff available in and around us. For example, if you look at Toronto, even though Toronto is a metropolitan city, you also see that there's a provision for low-income housing, which is good. And people do actually get access to them. So for housing, I would say we can do better, but it's not bad. But when it comes to employment, when it comes to, and also for people with disabilities, we have disabilities laws that take care of even access to premises, access to workplace, access to, you see, almost on every job posting, they tell you, oh, you can apply, even if you're disabled. We're going to follow the law. So we have all of this good stuff in place. And one way we can encourage ourselves so that we're not marginalized, so that we're included, is to leverage on the resources we have. There are legal aid community that even help families with low funding that people can also, leverage on to get access to justice, even where they face discrimination. We have the Ontario Commission Board, where people can, there's a lot of mechanisms out there, but we should also try and leverage on them, not shy away. And I think, discrimination will be far gone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I will want the Honorable Justice to also react to this. This is aspect of criminal justice reform. Now, data we have says that in Canada, Indigenous people represent 5% of the population, but account for 30% of the prison population. Similarly, Black Canadians represent 3% of the population, but 8% of the federal prison population. And these are minorities. So addressing the overrepresentation, racial profiling, and the need for alternatives to incarceration, such as restorative justice. What do you think, and how do we get by this? How do we even reduce the number?
It's a great question, and what you've suggested in terms of the overrepresentation of racialized individuals, whether indigenous or the racialized individuals, it is an indication that laws are not enough. To use that phrase from Quincy Jones, whatever it is, it's not enough, because I can tell you, take for instance the whole question of Aboriginal overrepresentation. For example, in on about 1995, there was a famous case called Regina versus Gladue, which talked about the systemic historical exploitation, discrimination against Aboriginal persons, and the court should take that into consideration in sentencing these types of offenders. Subsequent decisions, for example, said that, look, that approach should be broad as possible. It should not only include Aboriginal persons who live on reservations across Canada. Courts have also said, for example, the failure to take into consideration that historical reality is a reversible error. What has transpired since 1995, 1996? Not only has there been a lessening, there has not been a lessening of the percentage of indigenous persons in custody, but there has been an increase. The question is why? For a number of reasons. The justice system giveth and it taketh away. Because alongside those progressive measures are a series of pronouncements which basically blunted the impact of that type of these types of cases. For example, courts have said, well, hold on. If the more serious the offense, the more likely it is that Aboriginal offenders will receive the same type of sentence which their white counterparts will receive. That's basically what they've said. They've also said, despite what we have said in Gladue, in Proul, two of the most important decisions, despite what we are saying there, that status, indigenous status, is not a get out of jail free card. So what subliminal message are you sending to judges? Courts have also diluted it even further by saying that there has to be a nexus between that type of disadvantage and the commission of the offense. So at the end of the day, what do you have? You have these lofty pronouncements with respect to trying to ameliorate discrimination, societal discrimination. But on the other hand, you're instituting these legal caveats, which basically permit judges to deviate from the laudable goals achieved by, for example, the case of Gladue and legislation. We talked about a conditional sentence to keep offenders out of jail based to some degree on their past. And therein lies the problem. Well, let's put it this way. The inconvenient truth is that in sentencing racialized or indigenous offenders, many judges believe that they are succumbing to political correctness in taking those factors into consideration when sentencing these types of offenders. In fact, I can indicate to you they've attended seminars where judges express really negative views about having to take these factors into consideration. Because basically they start with the premise that why should a racialized person receive a lesser sentence for the very same offense committed by a white person? So that reality hasn't changed. At least it's changing, but not at any significant pace. So you continue to have these types of disparities in terms of sentencing. And the question is, what is the community doing to try to ameliorate that situation? Yes, we can hire more racialized judges, but look at the statistics. still much to be desired in terms of the rates to which we hire persons of color. And unfortunately, the system relies on old tropes of discrimination and inferiority by saying they are not qualified. Give them another 30 years. Not only that, but there's discrimination on the basis of language. There's a well-known case coming out of the West in which a psychiatrist from Nigeria was given expert testimony on behalf of the Crown, and the trial judge placed little credibility on his testimony. You know why? By saying he rolled his R's. He didn't pronounce this word properly. And it's the Court of Appeal of that province which has to say, but hold on, that has absolutely nothing to do with the assessment of credibility. And what about the whole question of unconscious bias? There are many judicial officers, quite frankly, who have a degree of reluctance in admitting that they manifest some unconscious bias when it comes to adjudicating cases involving racialized individuals. So again, we have to adopt a multi-pronged approach to addressing those types of issues. We have to move beyond lip service in saying that we are a diverse community and all is welcome. But the door is closed to a greater extent, or should I say locked, insofar as some applicants are concerned. At one point in 2014, the Federal Minister of Justice then, McKay, said that there's a dearth of, for example, women judges, let alone racialized women judges, because they don't apply, because they have childbearing responsibilities. That is the context in which we have to assess these types of issues. Lip service being paid to diversity and the reality of deprivation insofar as representation is concerned. That's what we have to look at.
Amazing, amazing. Chief Stephen, would you like to react to this? Because part of what he has said, I think it has to do with some of your function of the policing. And so what do you think? How do you think the police could do much more? I won't say to be deliberate, not to pick on the racial or the color of people, but I mean, what's your reaction to this? And after you, I probably may want to have Dr. Wendy to speak. I think she's been doing a lot more comment in the chat room. I think she's got some points she probably should want to share more light to. So if you are ready after Chief Stephen, then you can come up. Go ahead, Chief Stephen.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you to the panelists for their comments. There's definitely inequalities. Absolutely, there has always been and there still is. But I think the justice system is failing Canadians. I think the justice system is failing victims. I think it is failing people who bring forward human rights complaints. And I'll give you a couple of examples. But on the human rights side, I've been following a couple of cases from a nearby jurisdiction. Human rights cases, employment related, 6 to 7 years, and it's still going on. And in a whole different realm, we hear about, the sort of landlord-tenant situation where you can't even get a hearing. So I think our government has to invest in our courts, has to invest in our criminal courts, because our criminal victims, and I think particularly of some very sad sexual assault cases where cases have been thrown out on the day that the person is being sentenced because it's met 18 months. There's got to be some level of common sense. And I am aware of people who applied to be and would have been very good hearing officers, or in one case, the chair or vice chair of the Human Rights Tribunal. And after a year and a half of applying and going through interviews and the process was still going on, they abandoned their interest and went on to something else. So we're losing good people that should be adjudicating some of these concerns in a timely manner. We need to probably, I don't want to say double our judges in the criminal court system, but they could probably use it in our crown attorneys and pay some of those people that they're going to attract people to those positions. So that's sort of the backstory. I think one other thing that we really should demand as a society when we look at the disproportionality of those that are incarcerated is a really more of an in-depth study of why people are incarcerated. There are people that are incarcerated for murder or for attempt murder and for shootings and all sorts of situations. We have a crime severity index in Canada where we look at every crime in Canada and we give it a different weight as far as community safety goes. I don't think we've ever looked at that sort of measure in comparison to what different portions of our society are incarcerated for. And I think that would be a very telling study to be done if we could show that people who are racialized or indigenous are in custody, incarcerated for actual crimes and categories of crime where other people aren't. We have to sort of separate out the ones, let's just say, use murder as an example. Murder should be once, if it's proven, and there are issues with some of those cases, as we all know, that's sort of a different level of who's in custody. But I think our jails are sometimes full of people who maybe do not have to be in custody. And sadly, they're filling spots where we sometimes need to have other people who are repeat dangerous offenders held in custody, and there's not room for them if the courts can even get to the cases. So I would love to see a really detailed study of the inmates that are in both our provincial and federal institutions. So Ontario could do their own. Canada would have to do our Correctional Services Canada, but I think it would be a very telling tale if we were able to do that correctly.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Dr. Wendy, we can have your reaction to that.
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer, and my experience with the justice system is working mostly with victims of gun violence. So I see it on both ends. There's definitely a hierarchy of victims. Certain people will get more attention than others. And that's well documented. But I think the points about that Justice Andre made, especially about how income and class have a profound impact on outcomes, is so very true. And it's true whether you're talking about human rights litigation, whether you're talking about labor law, whether you're talking criminal law. Like my kid gets in trouble, they're going to have a lot of support and assets and interventions and social networks and people giving character attestations and bail and right, which is very, very different for the experiences of other people in other communities. And so I think class and economics are things that we don't really consider. And it's interesting because we've been doing work with a few police agencies that are really prioritizing trying to understand what the barriers are, for example, for Black and racialized people coming into policing. And there's all this stuff about, some people are coming from countries where the relationship with institutions is such that they wouldn't consider policing, but there are also criteria in terms of security checks that are going to be really affected by the communities that you grew up in and by your financial assets, and if you're a single mother, and so on and so forth. So often there's stuff that gets baked into the system. But I personally think the legal profession has got to be one of the areas of focus, because lawyers not only become judges, not only make cases and arguments in defense of offenders or people who have been accused of crimes, but law is a pathway to politics. Think about the number of prime ministers. I think the one we have now is one of the few who was not a lawyer, right? Law is a really important pathway to power and influence across the spectrum. And that's why really paying attention to the barriers that Black students face in terms of education, access to law. There was she was actually a physician who wrote, why is it that volunteering in a food bank is considered good experience for becoming a doctor or lawyer, whereas growing up poor is not, having lived experience is not. And so, I think that underneath a lot of this is social and economic inequality. The conditions in which some children are living makes them far more prone to exploitation, far more prone to falling into criminal activities and so on. And, you know, I'm sure Chief Tanner agrees that we have to have a balanced approach where we look at reform in the justice system, but we also look at investing in ways that will address the root causes of crime and violence, because, you know, that stuff's really well documented as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I have a follow-up question, and I will start with Honorable Justice again. I'm not putting you on spot anyway because you're the Honorable Justice, but because I also feel we need to hear your perspective about it. Access to justice. Okay, access to justice. The data we have says, according to 2018 Canadian study, 48% of low and middle income individuals face at least one legal problem within a 3-year period. But many could not afford legal representation. Okay, so then the focus is address barriers such as cost, language, and geographical challenges in accessing legal services, especially for marginalized groups. How do we achieve this? What are the possibilities?
I think the professor partly answered the question. We have to look at the intersection of poverty and marginalization and the whole question of racialized persons to understand why disproportionately persons of racialized communities seem to have a bigger challenge in getting access to justice than others. It is not coincidence. It is not because these people have some type of individual deficiency, individual pathology. It is not because they're bad people and they're afraid of the justice system. It is because of these systemic barriers which inhibit their ability to access the system. And that is what explains to some degree the difficulties that racialized, marginalized persons have with the system. First of all, it's not, even if many of them, they are successful in getting access, but they have to contend with the trial process. For example, a victim of crime, for example. There's vigorous cross-examination, too often permitted by the trial judge, in which they're painted as quite frankly, the wrong persons. It's as if they're placed on trial in many of these types of trials. And what message do you think that sends to someone who has a legitimate complaint about, for example, a boss who may have taken advantage of her in the workplace, in the workspace? What that person thinks of is the power imbalance of the boss, who can come with 10 witnesses, character witnesses, to testify on his behalf, compared to her. Because bear in mind, it's not just a matter of an alleged impropriety in the workplace. She has to think about her job. She has to think about her children. She has to think about her mortgage. She has to think about whether she can continue taking night classes to improve herself in terms of moving on to a better paying job. All these come into the mix when we have to assess these kinds of information. It's not a level playing field. In terms of language, again, I made a reference to this Nigerian psychiatrist who testified. In fact, I used the case in a presentation I had to make to a judges' conference and so on. The fact of the matter, and the sociologists who will tell you that language, quite frankly, is treated in the public space as an inhibitor. Once I had occasion to tell someone quite pointedly that my accent is no less equal than yours, as much as you might think so, because that becomes another component of deprivation, of denying people opportunities. Nobody tells you that publicly. You don't read it in any books, but it's there. You can feel it. You can know it. When I was first appointed 22 years ago, a lawyer looked at me in my face and said, "You have an advantage." I said, "Yes, I do, because I have 3 law degrees. How many do you have?" But that is the context. There is almost a rebuttable presumption that you lack the qualifications of your white counterparts to be on the bench. But not just on the bench, to be an executive in the workplace. So you have to prove yourself. And this is why anecdotally in our community, everyone says you have to be twice as qualified. You have to do a little more because of these ingrained perspectives which form the bedrock of our community. And I say so deliberately because there's a perception, there's a Canadian narrative that we're not like these folks in the South. We don't do that. We're nice folk. Well, yes, we're nice to a certain extent, but it depends on, you see, there's an old saying in the islands, I like you as a brother, but not as a brother-in-law. So when you come too close to the locus of power, then the swords are pulled out, and then you come victimized like Julius Caesar. That is the stark reality that we have to face. And that is the inconvenient truth that as a society, we don't like to hear, because we all like to think that they, not us, discriminate against anybody. It's no different in the workplace, in the universities, and it is just as the same as on the bench. And that is the stark reality we have to deal with. We have to get rid of the culture of denial and confront the reality head on. How do we empower? As I tell people in speeches, there's no foreign jails like they used to have in the colonial times, when in England, when you are sentenced to some period of custody, they send you to Australia, or they banish you in Suriname, as the French used to do. The persons who are sent to jail, sometimes justifiably, sometimes not, the jail is an incubator of criminal activity. If they get released, where do they come back? They're right into the community. That's where they will be coming home to roost. And for many years, particularly based on the American experience, we used to think, don't worry about these African Americans. They're going back to their own ghettos. They're killing of their own. So we don't have to worry about them. But crime is no respecter of boundaries. And the simple, everybody can make a difference. I happen to have met Chief Tanner in a couple different fora and meetings and so on. He has a very progressive attitude, quite frankly. The same can't be said for every police officer. But it is the strength of your character which will determine the extent to which change will be effected. The laws are beautiful. You talked about African Americans, African Canadians. Just 2 minutes. We have a presumption of innocence. We have a judicial mindset which says that no one should be denied reasonable bail. We have a case called Myers, which says that even if you're in custody for 3 months, you are entitled to a new bail hearing to determine whether you should remain in custody. We have a particular criminal codes provision which says that in deciding whether someone should be released, the judge should take into consideration any specific racialized information regarding to systemic discrimination. And yet the phenomenon of over-incarceration persists. So who do you blame? The laws? The laws are there. Or it's the decision makers? I leave it to you to decide.
Thank you. Wow. Obviously, our time cannot allow us to exhaust all of this conversation. But in any case, we will see how far we can go. Dr. Wendy has said she won't leave, so I will allow you in 1 minute, and then I'll come to Barrister Titi to share our thoughts too.
I wanted to add 2 points. One is, folks should have a look at the case of Tamara Termitis, who is an award-winning lawyer who headed up the Quebec Human Rights Commission and was pushed out in 2016. Her case is still before the courts because she wasn't prepared to go quietly. You have to have a lot of money, a lot of stamina, and a lot of determination to stick that up. Her case is written up in in Walrus. It's pretty clear. The second thing I wanted to just flag, which ties into the issue of incarceration. Some of you may know the organization called Urban Res. Over-incarceration, clearly a problem. People come back into the community and we do not provide adequate support. The barriers that are posed to young people in jail in furthering their education, in my view, is a violation of human rights, because if you want to reintegrate people, it's a lot harder to reintegrate gang members than it is child soldiers. You know, if you look at the phenomena in terms of trying to change behaviors, connections, and so on. And again, I would just argue that education is really critical to that, and we should not be depriving people of access to education, particularly young people, because of conflicts with the law. So I want to thank everybody for including me. I have to drive to the airport, so I'm going to log off. I might call in on my phone, hands-free, not a distracted driver.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you,
Cukier.
Professor.
We appreciate you so much. And if there's
Take
any
care.
question, okay, when you call in, we share with you. So, Barrister Titi, we will have your thought, and then we will have the open house for questions, and then we can engage the other participants so that they can have questions. So, participants, if you have questions, you can drop the question in the chat room, and then we can take it up from there. After Barrister Titi's response, we will open the floor for interaction. Thank you, Barrister Titi.
All right, thank you so much. So just like the justice has said, there's a lot that needs to be done, even though we have these laws. And but the reality is that we need to do much more, even as a community. We need to stand together, stand for each other, help each other. For some people, they don't have the basic knowledge, probably because they are new to Canada, they don't know how the system works, which is why programs like this is there to sensitize people, to let them know what their rights are. Because when you know your rights, then you can fight for it. So also, another thing we could do other than, sensitizing people, helping them to know what they have, what are the legal rights or the scope of their rights within the law. Another thing we could do is also to inculcate in our children what it is, the kind of society we are in, what they need to do, what they need to know, how they can, navigate in this system. My son had an issue in school where another student used the N-word on him. The principal did call by himself to report the situation. And after reporting, he went, he wasn't saying anything. So it took me following up with him to say, okay, you reported this situation and you're not saying anything. I'm not hearing anything from you. So our children also need to be aware, to be self-aware. Yes, we're all in Canada. These are what you need to know in terms of your day-to-day life within the system. These are the things. So I had to follow up and told him, you have to give me a feedback. What was done? What did you do? How did that get solved? So we have to sensitize the upcoming generation so that things get better from one generation to another. Things are put in place even for the younger ones. So we can also clear the path for them, just so by the time, we can look back in the next 3 to 4, 5 years, more than just the speaking, we can see the system working and making adequate changes to ensure that we're included. There's no discrimination, no segregation, there's no disparity because of color, because of sex. And, everybody can have equal access, even in terms of when you're applying for a job. I've had to, after qualifying as a lawyer, I've had to, experience this myself, where they are literally asking you, did you school in Canada? If you don't have a JD in Canada, they don't want to listen to you. Okay, I schooled back home. I can go back to the university. I can start running that again, So we have to, as a community, speak up for ourselves, speak up for professionals who are coming in and who are being frustrated within the system, even after taking the required licensing exams. We have a ton of people who are not properly integrated into the system. Even if we look at the other side, even though I'm a lawyer, you see doctors, they're frustrated because of the systemic racism that we have. Even though there are fine laws, but we have systemic racism. We have to break the glass ceiling and make sure that everyone is equal, everyone gets access, even in terms of their financial status in the society. And we have to do this by all coming together and making sure we speak up for ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're still going to have time to, do some little more conversation. But before then, we would like to take some questions from the participant. And I think I have a few of those questions there. I think I have a question from Jane. And the question is, the legal system can be intimidating. Providing knowledge on key rights and resources equip individuals to advocate for themselves, helping create a society where people feel secure and valued. All right. It looked like a comment, but at the same time, I think we can share our perspective on that. All right. I also have another one. I will just read that, then I will allow the panelists to react to this. Why is it that we have better laws, better lawyers, better police, better judges than we have in Africa, but our children are overrepresented when it comes to breaking the law? Is it not common sense that Africans and other leaders within their community should take a major role in dispute resolution with our people? Those in working policing and afraid of losing a source of income? That is not clear, but are those in, maybe you can get that. I guess the writer is trying to say those in policing threatening to lose their source of livelihood. But I will leave that to the panelists. I don't know who's going to go first. If you can share your thoughts around these two opinions.
I'll start just because I want to sort of reiterate what the Honorable Justice said, I believe, too, is we probably have what should be a well-designed legal system, but there's nothing to hold it accountable for its performance. There's no performance measures when it comes to the legal system. There's no accountability for judges in many ways. Other professions, ours included, doctors, other professionals are highly regulated and oversight bodies. And there's no checks and balances for a legal system that doesn't hold itself accountable, and for governments that don't invest enough in those legal systems and in the different levels of it that would help to ensure equal access for more people. The complications of it, that's a whole different matter, where we have to make sure that justice is available to everyone, and that they have the resources, either because they have them, the wealthy of the wealthiest, or they're provided to them, sort of what our legal aid is supposed to do in some cases, but it doesn't cover everything. So I think we need to invest more in that justice system.
Good point, Chief. I certainly can't dispute what you're saying. I can even give you an example. I was doing some research, and in many jurisdictions, for example, there are restrictions on lawyer advertising, whether it's gold and gold or diamond and diamond. That's another story. But there are restrictions, and in a case about 8 years ago, the Supreme Court of Canada said that a federal body which impose restrictions on lawyers in advertising, it is a violation of the lawyer's constitutional rights of freedom of expression. So that in that decision, they basically leave the legal profession unregulated, save and except for the provincial law associations. And it amplifies what the Chief is saying. But in terms of the question raised by the person who put the question in your chat about, perhaps members in our community, it's not just a matter of mentoring. It's a matter of taking ownership of your children. I have 2 daughters. I live in Brampton. I've been there for 40 years. Many persons believe that Brampton is a metaphor for criminal activity. And I have to tell you that it always ran me broke, but I had to send both of them to private schools just to give them a chance, which I did not have, because my lower education was in an island, 70,000 people, to be quite frank with you. But we had to oversee them. We had to take charge of them, even to a point where at least one of them accused me of being a dictator. So I told a parenthood is not a democracy. You see, because what I can see, you will never be able to see it, at least not at your age.
Mm-hmm.
The value of education is too important to leave it to the teachers. And I have great respect for teachers. But they're streaming not because they make them bathe in streams, because as a conscious policy for many years, they diverted them from traditional professions. We have to take charge of our children. We have to make sure we know what they do at school. We have to make sure who they associate with. Because once their value system is based on their peers, sadly, as a parent, you've lost the battle. Many of us come from established communities where your grandmother, your auntie, your cousin, your nene, the whole community takes responsibility for that child. Hillary Clinton a few years ago popularized that phrase, it takes a village to build a child. We know that. We don't need someone to tell us that. I know that there's a certain reality in our adopted communities where your parents may have to work 2 jobs. Your parents may not have enough time to spend nurturing the child as, for example, if they were in the whole community where you have the rest of the village to assist in that child. But you have to make it your business to say that, you know, the NAACP motto, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And the beauty I like with at least the system, despite evidence of discrimination, is that if you're determined, if you have the right mindset, if you just pause to remember that there's at least 25 universities in Ontario alone, if you pause to remember that there are over 100 colleges in Ontario alone, with the right mindset, with a parent or a guardian or a nenen, well, nenen is a little French word we use in the islands. With that guidance, there is nothing stopping, and I believe that fervently, any child from achieving his or her goals right here in Canada. And to me, that is the hope that exists for us. Mind you, even at university, you have to encounter some of these discriminatory practices. But I can only speak for myself. I always said to myself, well, we speak a French Creole in Dominica, where I was raised. You can do whatever you want. But you know that part of that song of YouTube, you too, whatever, with or without you, I will achieve my goals.
Yeah.
But if we pound that belief in these children from a young age, quite frankly, we will be marching in the wilderness proudly, without any fear of being ambushed by anyone who just doesn't like you because of the color of your skin, not because of the content of your character. So we have a strong role to play, we as a community, in the upliftment of our young people. It may not be an inconvenient truth to say, but it is true. And I think we have to take that responsibility, because we have to say, look, I mean, there's no biblical teaching saying that we have to be condemned or confined to being hewers of wood and drawers of water. We can achieve like anybody else. And if many of the other persons from other communities had to undergo the history of oppression, of victimization, of deprivation, like we've had to historically, then quite frankly, they would not be where we are today. But there's infinitely more progress that we can make. And we cannot abort that responsibility, quite frankly, irrespective of the discrimination. And it is there. Sometimes you can cut it with a knife. One person, a colleague once told me that my final shot is, you have a sing-song accent. He said, of course I do. That's your problem if you don't like it. It's not my problem. Will not keep me back. I will not allow you to make me. And, you know, you have to deal with microaggressions, as the professor said, and so on. But, you know, the saying is, when a door is closed, as Bob Marley once said in one of his songs, many more will open, but they will not open automatically. You have to. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Justice. Barrister Titi, we can have your reactions to that too.
So in terms of the legal system being daunting, I would say there are a lot of resources to honestly leverage on. And another thing I'd like to say is that within our own community, we should try and reach out and help ourselves. Another thing inward, when we look inwards, is the fact that we also tend to segregate within the community. So we have a bigger problem of segregation outside, but even within our own community, we segregate. It's not helping us, and it won't help us in any way. So the sooner we come to terms with the fact that we need to do this together as a communal thing, as a communal effort, having one voice, just like that word in the Bible that says a house that is divided against itself cannot stand. So we can be divided against ourselves if we really, really, really want to be included. The laws will be there, but if we do not stand together as one, help each other, even when the system seems daunting, when you get help, when you can rely on the next person, when you can call out to the next person, it makes it a lot easier. So I would say that working it out together is very important and not segregating within ourselves.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I have a question here that I want us to, I think this question will require a short answer actually. Would preparing basic information packages for immigrants and especially areas that disproportionately affect Blacks and make this available to CMP website at the Newcomer Center, social media expert, with input from experts that we have in this panel and more people? Is this something that we can get from, the expert we have here, a form of a package that can be very highly informative, that can help, the new immigrant to Canada? Is this something we feel we can work with CMP to accomplish?
It certainly would, but I can tell you based on the Brampton experience. When I was in private practice, a number of lawyers, not just lawyers, other professionals and we teamed up, and every year we would have a conference, a whole Saturday called Youth Quake. And what we would do, we would make presentations primarily, we would invite schools and we would tell them if they could send a class and so on, and we would feed them, we'd raise a few dollars, and we would speak to them in language, hopefully that they could understand the whole question of where they are historically as students, the issues they have to contend with, and the urgency of now, to use a Martin Luther King phrase, why it is so imperative that they don't realize that they are too young to learn to take certain proactive steps to get ahead. They have to understand that the whole question of peer pressure, quite frankly, is not as significant as it is to them at this juncture in their lives. They have to understand that it is well and good to complain about being discriminated against. But when you become the author of the abortion of your future, that is the worst sin, at least from my perspective. When you play a role in your being kept down, that is the biggest sin in my respectful view. So it seems to me, those of us who've achieved a modicum of success, we do have that responsibility, in my view, to at least add the 2 cents worth that we can add to the narrative. The narrative about upliftment, the narrative about empowerment. And it seems to me that we have that obligation. The barrister Titi was talking about divisions within the community. She's absolutely correct. Certainly in Toronto, there's been significant discord among the young Black youth based on where they come from and so on and so forth. That is the saddest cut of all, because they have been conscripted to brutalize and oppress themselves. So we have to try to change that discourse.
Thank you.
And you're doing it for your parents. Your parents made a sacrifice. Let me ask you this. I know that it doesn't apply to you, but just if we teach our young people to have a conversation with their parents, many of them who came here in the 60s, in the 70s, or even in the 80s, or even in the 90s, the sacrifices that they have had to make, the number of jobs that they had to work at one particular time. Why? because the parents want to give their children the opportunities which they themselves did not have.
Okay. Yeah.
And are we betraying that legacy by thinking that, quite frankly, you have to sacrifice your future on the altar of self-aggrandizement, instant gratification, wearing a nice pair of pants for $200, a nice pair of Jordan shoes for $5, for God's sakes? We have to make these young people realize that there is a greater meaning than those symbols of instant gratification. Because many of the same young people that they interact with from the majority community, when they finish playing that game, they can rely on the parents to get decent jobs, send them to school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who remain behind disproportionately. That is the language, that is the message that we have to convey to these young people. They are no less than the trees of the stars. They have a right to be here, but they have a responsibility to doing what God has given them, which is a basic intelligence, to build on it.
Awesome.
I'm saying too much.
No. I mean, you're saying a lot of points, not too much. Chief Steven, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I had fantastic comments and so well described. Thank you. And I think there are some ongoing programs that people can reach out to for information. We deal quite a bit in Halton with Halton Multicultural Committee, HMC. They're actually a member of our Chiefs Diversity Forum, where we meet with a variety of individuals from our communities all together 3 or 4 times a year. They have material that they will give to newcomers to Canada. We also have some really good programs to speak exactly to what the Honorable Justice was talking to in dealing with our youth. And one of those programs is through the Canadian Caribbean Association of Halton, CCAH, which is also a part of our diversity forum, which some of the people on this call are very familiar with, who run educational programs throughout the summer, somewhat in corroboration with us. They'll sometimes use our facilities, but it's all about leadership, and it's about the potential that these young people have. And it is geared towards young Black men and women in our community, and kids that are going through school and sometimes going through difficult times. So I think there's all those sorts of ways that really do bring the village together. And it actually fits in with, well, talk about community safety and well-being these days. And a few years ago, the province sort of mandated it, but they can't mandate success. But community safety and well-being really means we work with the community. We work with the different organizations that actually have the skills and expertise and ability to help people, where sometimes the police are not the best ones to be involved in some of those situations and some of those either interventions or educational types of settings. And we need to be able to work with all the different people that can bring those abilities to the floor and help people that are going through some of these situations. So everything we're talking about fits in with community safety and well-being and the bigger picture. And we have to get back to parenting. And sadly, some individuals don't have positive role models in their lives. So we look at other ways to set up programs and to, there's a variety of public ones like Big Brothers and Big Sisters, but we just started a foundation here in Halton, the first police foundation in the province of Ontario, raised over $500,000 this year. All those funds are there for a separate board to deliver to programs which will assist youth at risk. So we need to do more of those things, and I would welcome anyone to look into those programs and look into some of the things that we are doing, but there's things we can still do better. So as we always say, none of us is as smart as all of us, and we have to listen to each other to learn from each other. That's why events like this are so valuable.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It has been an interesting and engaging session, and I know our audience are also getting a lot of useful and valuable information, and that I can see also by the comment in the chat room. Barrister Titi, I know you also have something to say, and as we wrap up, I want us to also, because we've looked at the system, we've looked at the legal, the policies and laws, and we've looked at some gaps that still need to be filled by some more laws. And now we are narrowing it down to the community itself, especially the responsibility of the parent. Parenting now seems to be another way through which we can actually achieve most of all our suggestion and recommendation today, that when we are able to also work with our children, we probably be able to put them on the right path. So as we wrap up, I will want to have us to do 1 minute, a close up on how and what are the parent needs to do. Because even the parent, like you said, Honorable Joseph said, they work 2-3 jobs, so they need to get the survival of the family. But again, they cannot trade that responsibility, for whatever it is it was. So, Barrister Titi, let's start from you as we narrow it down.
All right, I'll say charity begins from home. It takes the parents to really plan out themselves in terms of who works when, who takes care of this. It has to be planned. Everybody cannot run on 2 jobs and expect to have fantastic children and expect to have everything going smooth. We find ourselves in an environment where there is no backup, so to speak. Unlike back home where you have people to rely on, you can get house helps, you can get cooks. There's nothing like that. So I would say to the parent, a lot of planning has to go in. Okay, if I'm available at this time, you can work at this time. Let's find a common ground just so we can raise children that are well-rounded, not just children who are academically sound but do not have character, not just children who can be influenced because you're not around. Another thing we see when there's a gap in parenting is social vices. Children go into drugs, and this can, boomerang into greater problems even in the society at large. So I would say, with respect to parents, let us sit and plan, okay? It's okay to still live in a rented apartment while you're still working at it and have children that are well-grounded. So once that foundation is laid, then we can start running after jobs. After all, they won't be with us forever. So I would say planning, and also parents having one voice. Okay, when someone is condoning something, someone should not say otherwise. So a lot of planning and working things out, especially in this system where you don't have backup and you can't really get as much help as you would like to. So planning is key.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chief Tenor. Will be the next. As we wrap up, your 1 minute and then your focus on parents.
It takes all of us to make this world better, and parenting certainly is important. And I think our education system has a big role to play in a lot of things that go on in our society. We don't focus on some things in public school or high school. We don't focus on diversity or understanding diversity or history. I got to tell you, I grew up in Oakville actually on the 16 Mile Creek much of my early life. I never knew until I was a police officer, probably 12 years ago, when I came back to Halton, the importance of Oakville and the whole Underground Railway and what came here to Oakville. I never learned that in school. And I think we don't learn parenting. We don't learn financial things, the common sense financial capabilities that people need to know so they don't get into trouble in different ways. And yeah, I'd not want to put everything onto the education system, but I think there's got to be a refocus on some things that are really important to kids that are at the ages that are in those schools. And most of our kids are in the schools, not all. And some of us are fortunate to be able to access different levels of education, but we need to have some sort of a common denominator where people are at least informed and taught about diversity and inclusivity and racism and the dangers of all of those, the terrible things that happen. And they're not taught these things.
Thank you. Honorable Justice, so you will be the giving us the final wrap-up in 1 minute, your thought, and then the MC can then take over from here.
Well, first of all, let me thank my fellow panelists. I think they all made excellent presentations. Let me thank your audience for listening and for lending us some of their thoughts and their ideas and so on. Let me say this. Yes, we can objectively critique whether it's law enforcement or the justice system, but let us not forget that, in a sense, we should not make either the scapegoat for the ills of society. We deal with the end products of the problem. We deal with the neglect. We deal with the ostracism. We deal with the shafting of students from schools.
Oh, yeah.
We deal with those shortcomings which create the path for these young people to end up in the hands either of law enforcement or the system. We can improve it as much as we want. We can improve policing as much as we want, or the criminal justice system. But if we don't stem that tide, if we don't dam that river of discontent,
yeah,
nothing will be achieved in any significant way or form. What we need is an ideological reset, a lobotomy of mentality, to use a medical analogy. And until we succeed in that, quite frankly, the river will continue to flow. And it's not up the River Jordan, unfortunately, but in a sea of despondency and regret. Parents going through an emotional toil, seeking solace in the church, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But in that very church lies to a significant degree the seeds of our redemption. You shall reap what you sow.
Yeah.
The parable of the sower.
Yeah.
You know, whatever you do to the least of my brothers, that you do unto me. So that is why our own redemption rests in our own hands. I'm probably simplifying the problem, but I'm saying if we don't approach this problem from a perspective of self-empowerment, we are doomed indeed. And based on my own little background, small island background, I continue to believe that within us lies the seeds of our own redemption. We can't wait for the man to give us everything on a golden platter.
Yeah.
We can't shop by some designer's shop. There's no byways these days. When I came to Canada, there was byways. There was Bargain Harrods. Now there's Walmart. Many of these young people wouldn't be caught dead buying the sneakers from Walmart. Are you crazy? You know, so we have to change that whole mindset. Saving your pennies, saving it to pool together to buy property. Land, well, I think I'll stop there. Let's put it that way. Supposed to be 1 minute. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think I pass the mic to the MC. I know Dr. Wendy is somewhere, so don't forget, you might want a personal message, but I hand over the mic to the MC to continue from here. Thank you, wonderful panelists. It's been a wonderful night. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Wendy's getting gas, but she says thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Wendy. Wow, this has been an amazing evening. I'm like, do we have to stop? Can we put the time on standstill and just continue to tap from these amazing and brilliant minds? Thank you so much, A.Y. Morgan, for a beautiful moderation of tonight's panel discussion. A big thank you to Dr. Wendy. I won't try to say your surname so I don't murder it again, but thank you so much. You've said we should call you Dr. Wendy. Thank you so much for the keynote speech. And this panel, oh my word, they have been pretty amazing. Is there a way we can give them a big round of applause? Like they deserve it. This has been a very enriching conversation. Chief Stephen, thank you so much. Barrister Titi, wow, you look very gentle, but you were hitting the spot and very, very dropping gems and very, very good. Thank you, Honorable Justice. You've been amazing tonight. Thank you so much. This has been really, really amazing. Yes, let's shower them some love and appreciation in the chat. Thank you, everyone. To all our participants from all over the world, you guys have been amazing, very engaging in the chat. Thank you so very, very much. Quickly, I will tell us about tomorrow. We'll be talking about the importance of governance in inclusion. And I will quickly read two wise sayings, one from Nelson Mandela. He said, true governance is not about control, but creating a system where everyone belongs and contributes. And in the words of Kofi Annan, that's the 7th Secretary General of the United States, he says, good governance is the bridge between diversity and collective progress. I really do look forward to tomorrow, because I know it keeps getting better from day one, then to day two, based on our experience over the last 4 years. And we really do look forward to tomorrow. So if I were you, I wouldn't miss tomorrow for anything. Same time, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And don't forget that this event was powered by the Council of Nigerian Professionals, now the Council of African Professionals. Thank you everyone for joining. Right about now, I will be calling on Efuange Kumba, who will be giving us the vote of thanks and closing remarks. I think this is going to be on YouTube, right? So I'm going to try and rewatch this panel session again tonight or sometime tomorrow. So I come back fresh, and then it's a foundation, and then we are going to be building on this. So please make welcome Efuange for the vote of thanks and closing remarks. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Again, want to thank everybody who's been here. I think the MC has said much of the thanks, and I'm just saying this on behalf of CNP and CAP. I would like to just take a small moment to express our heartfelt gratitude to our producers and volunteers that have been working behind the scenes to make sure we have these videos sharp and the audio's nice. We want to also acknowledge their dedication and their hard work, and we deeply appreciate everything they do for CNP and CAP. We would also like to acknowledge our sponsors, the Government of Canada, Luina Local 183, RBC, as well as our partners. Your generosity and support means a great deal for the success of CNP and CAP. We're grateful. Well, we are very, very grateful for all your continuous commitment to support our cause. My own special thanks goes obviously to the moderator and the MC. Thank you guys so much. It's been an interactive discussion. We've learned a lot. And thank you again for always doing this. We're going to be seeing you throughout this discussion. Our keynote speaker, Dr. Wendy, was wonderful. Our panelists, the Honorable Justice Andre, Titi, Barrister Titi, Chief Tenor. Again, we can't pay you guys for this amount of education. I heard last time some people are paying $40,000 for a course at Harvard University. I think if you guys had to put a price on this, it's going to way exceed that. Thank you so much for sharing your professional and life experiences with us. This discussion today has definitely laid a foundation for a positive change, and we are grateful for your expertise and your abilities to share your knowledge the way you did. Finally, to our audience out there, without you, this conversation would not have gone this interactive. Your participation in your comments is what truly makes a great and a meaningful discussion. We believe we have all gained valuable insight into the importance of the legal system in promoting inclusion, and the time you spend with us is sincerely appreciated. Once again, thank you. Thank everyone for supporting CNP and CAP. We are a small and growing non-for-profit. Please join us and let's change the world together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Efuange. Please join CNP. Please join us. Thank you once again to our keynote speaker, our panelist, our moderator. Thank you, Efuange, for that heartfelt appreciation. Thank you to Lady Abba and the CNP and the CAP team for putting this together. It is www.cpnngo.ca. Please do well to visit us, like our contents, repost, invite your friends, invite your neighbors, invite your colleagues at work. This is a conversation that is worth listening to. So from us to you, we say a huge thank you. We appreciate you. And we do look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 6 p.m. The conversation continues. This is just the beginning. Thank you and have a good night, everyone.